So if you're looking for a shortcut to really, get a handle on one of the ancient world's most fascinating and, frankly, resilient civilizations, Carthage, well, you're in the right place.
Hmm.
Our mission today is a deep dive into the sources. We want to understand the full story of this North African powerhouse, a city born really from commercial audacity as much as anything else.
Exactly. And it's a story that, for too long, has just been a kind of footnote to Rome.
Right, usually just Hannibal and the elephants.
It's a Hannibal.
Yeah.
But we want you to see Carthage as this thriving, independent commercial force it was for centuries. And crucially, understand why its success felt like such a threat to everyone else.
Okay, let's kick things off with the founding legend, because it just sets the tone perfectly, doesn't it? The story of Dido, or
Yeah, the Phoenician queen fleeing Tyre. She lands in North Africa, and the local ruler says, okay, you can have the land an ox hide can cover.
which sounds like nothing.
Right. But Dido, being incredibly sharp, cuts this ox hide into thread-thin strips, lays them end to end.
And marks out a pretty decent plot of land for her trading post.
Exactly. It's all about cleverness.
Yeah.
Finding the loophole, maximizing the deal.
That story, whether it's literally true or more poetic, it just feels like Carthage, doesn't it? Born from audacity and maybe a bit of legalistic thinking.
It absolutely behaved like that. Carthage very quickly becomes the sort of de facto HQ for the whole Western Phoenician trading network. And the philosophy seems pretty simple. Farming keeps you alive, but trade makes you truly wealthy and powerful.
And that ambition immediately started rubbing other powers the wrong way.
For centuries, yeah.
So let's talk specifics. What made them such a commercial powerhouse? The sources mentioned things like glasswork, but the big one was that purple dye.
Oh, Tyrian purple, absolutely. That stuff was like liquid gold.
Why was it so valuable?
Well, it came from these specific sea snails, murex snails. And the process to extract and create the dye was incredibly labor-intensive. You needed thousands of snails for even a small amount of dye.
So super exclusive.
It's extremely. Only royalty emperors could really afford it. Controlling that wasn't just profit, it was a status symbol, a political tool even.
And they backed up this trade with amazing infrastructure, that famous double harbor in the capital.
The Carthage. Yeah, it's a marvel of engineering, really. You have this outer rectangular part purely for merchant ships, bustling trade.
Okay.
And then connected by a narrow channel, you have the inner circular harbor, strictly military.
Ah, separated. Clever.
Very. And this inner harbor had an island in the middle for the admiral's HQ, and radiating out from it, hundreds of individual ship sheds, like covered dry docks.
Wow. So they could maintain and protect a massive fleet ready to go?
Hundreds of warships. It shows you their core identity. Commerce first, but protected by untouchable sea power.
And their ships went everywhere, didn't they? Sardinia, Sicily, Spain.
Iberia, yeah, absolutely crucial. Down the African coast, too, bringing back silver from Iberian mines, grain from the African interior. Huge wealth flowing in.
And this gets us to a key difference compared to, say, Rome, how they ran their empire.
Right. Carthage wasn't initially about planting legions and demanding oaths like Rome. They preferred tribute, tariffs, trade agreements.
So more like buying influence, using contracts.
Kind of, yeah. Establishing mutually beneficial arrangements, offering protection for trade routes. It made their network really flexible. They could project influence far and wide without massive standing armies everywhere.
But that flexibility must have had a downside, right? If it's based on contracts and money, what happens when the money dries up or you face an enemy who doesn't care about contracts?
That's the core vulnerability. You hit it exactly.
Yeah.
Flexible? Yes, but sometimes fragile. After the First Punic War, for instance, they couldn't pay their mercenaries. Big revolt. Big problem. That reliance on bat loyalty could backfire spectacularly, especially against Rome's model of citizen soldier duty.
Okay, so that flexibility gets tested early on, mainly in Sicily, against the Greeks.
Yeah, Sicily was a real crucible. For centuries, it was this constant back and forth, this grinding fight between Carthaginians and the Greek city-states there, like Syracuse.
Why Sicily? What made it so important?
Location, location, location. Smack dab in the middle of the Mediterranean. Control Sicily, and you basically influence all east-west trade, all naval movement, access to Italy, access to North Africa.
The strategic linchpin.
Absolutely. And both sides, Greeks and Carthaginians, were utterly convinced of their own superiority and were just incredibly stubborn about holding on to it. They bled for that island.
And then a new player enters the game, Rome.
Enter Rome, yeah. The sources often paint them as having this sort of unshakable pragmatism and a huge appetite for expansion, often framed as just, helping their friends.
Like they did in Sicily, claiming they were just aiding allies against Carthaginian pressure.
Right, but Carthage knew trouble when they saw it. This wasn't just another local squabble, this was different.
And that leads to the First Punic War, 264 BC. A massive clash. And a shock, particularly at sea, right?
Huge shock. Carthage had centuries of naval tradition. They should have wiped the floor with the Romans at sea.
But Rome, they just decided to become a naval power overnight.
Pretty much. That Roman pragmatism again. They supposedly found a wrecked Carthaginian quinquereme, copied it, and built a whole fleet incredibly quickly.
That's amazing.
And then they added their killer innovation, the corvette.
But boarding bridge, it sounds almost crude.
Crude, but brutally effective. It was this heavy gangplank with a big spike on the end. They'd slam it down onto an enemy ship's deck, locking the ships together.
Ah, so it negates the fancy sailing.
Completely. It stopped the Carthaginians from using their superior ramming and maneuvering skills. Suddenly, a sea battle became a fight for Roman legionaries.
They turned it into a floating infantry battle, their strength.
Exactly. March the soldiers across and take the ship. The psychological blow for Carthage must have been immense. Their ace card was neutralized.
So after decades of fighting.
Yeah, over 20 years. Exhausting war. Carthage finally had to give up, ceded Sicily to Rome, paid huge reparations. They had to watch this upstart Rome just keep growing.
But the story wasn't over. Not by a long shot. This is where it gets personal. The Barca family.
Ah, yes. Hamilcar Barca. He took that defeat incredibly personally, and he famously made his son, Hannibal, swear an oath.
Eternal enmity towards Rome.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just talk. Hamilcar built up a power base for the family in Iberia, Spain. Silver mines, soldiers, political influence. He groomed Hannibal for revenge.
And Hannibal, well, he delivered, didn't he? That march across the Alps with elephants.
It's one of history's most audacious military moves. Just the image of it. Elephants crossing snowy mountains, it terrified Rome. It showed them nowhere was safe.
And the battles that followed, Trebia, Lake Trasimene.
And Cannae, especially Cannae, a tactical masterpiece by Hannibal, an encirclement that just annihilated a massive Roman army, tens of thousands killed.
Absolute humiliation for Rome. So the big question, Hannibal's winning battles, crushing legions. Why didn't he conquer Rome itself? Why no surrender?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And that the answer really lies in two things, Roman determination and Carthaginian hesitation.
Okay, explain the Roman side first.
Sheer Roman obstinacy, their civic identity. Even after Cannae, the Senate just refused to negotiate. They wouldn't even ransom back captured soldiers. Instead, they appointed Fabius Maximus.
The delayer.
Yeah.
Fabian tactics.
Exactly. Avoid pitched battles with Hannibal at all costs. Harass his supply lines, shadow his army, wear him down, bleed him slowly, starve him of resources and reinforcements while Rome rebuilt its own strength elsewhere.
Genius in its own way, frustratingly effective.
Very. And crucially, Rome had the manpower reserves and the political unity to sustain that strategy.
Which brings us to the Carthaginian side. Why didn't they fully back Hannibal?
Politics back home. The Carthaginian Senate was deeply divided. You had Hannibal's faction, the Barcids, pushing for all-out war and total support.
Makes sense.
But you also had a powerful peace faction, mostly wealthy landowners and merchants. They were terrified the war was bankrupting the state and ruining trade. They saw Hannibal's campaign as this endless, risky drain.
So they held back. No major reinforcements, no siege equipment for Rome.
Pretty much. They failed to send the naval support needed to control the sea lanes or the heavy equipment to actually take Rome. Hannibal was left kind of stranded in Italy, brilliant but ultimately isolated.
Relying on fickle Italian allies who started peeling away as Rome recovered.
Exactly. Rome played the long game, Carthage hesitated, and eventually the war shifted back to Africa. Scipio Africanus took the fight to Carthage's doorstep.
And defeated Hannibal at Zama, 202 BC.
The end of Carthage as a major rival to Rome, for them.
For then.
Yeah.
Because Rome imposed harsh terms, right? Limited navy, huge indemnity payments, couldn't wage war without permission. Basically, stay small and quiet.
Yes, total containment was the goal.
Yeah.
But Carthage being Carthage, they just couldn't stop being successful.
How so?
Well, the merchants went right back to trading, rebuilding networks, and perhaps even more impressively, their agriculture boomed. They were agricultural innovators.
Right, you mentioned the writer Mago, his farming manuals.
Yeah, Mago's work on agriculture was apparently so good, so efficient, that after Rome utterly destroyed Carthage in the next war, they specifically saved his books, translated them into Latin.
That's incredible. They level the city but keep the farming guide. Tells you something about that Carthaginian knack for productivity.
And it really does.
Yeah.
And that productivity, that quick return to prosperity, It made Rome deeply uncomfortable, deeply paranoid.
Which fuels the next stage, Cato the Elder.
Senator Cato, ending every single speech, no matter the topic, with the same line, Carthago delenda est. Carthage must be destroyed.
Just hammering it home. Relentless.
Relentless paranoia. Younger senators might have rolled their eyes, but eventually that constant message, that fear of a revived rival, it took root.
And led to the Third Punic War, which wasn't really a war, more like an extermination.
It was brutal. Rome basically manufactured a pretext. The siege of Carthage lasted 3 years, and the resistance, it was beyond desperate.
What kind of things did they do?
Sources talk about citizens melting down personal jewelry, even statues, for funds. Women cutting off their long hair to be braided into ropes for catapults.
Just unimaginable resolve, turning the whole city into a weapon.
A final, doomed stronghold. The destruction afterwards was total. Systematic razing, survivors enslaved.
And the famous story about salting the earth?
Probably not true. It's great drama, makes for a good story, but contemporary Roman sources don't mention it.
Why not?
Likely because the point wasn't just to stop farming there. The point was symbolic erasure, obliteration of the enemy, the place, the memory. Complete destruction was more Roman style than agricultural sabotage, which they could always reverse later if they wanted the land.
Okay, so total destruction. End of story.
You'd think so. But here's the most amazing part of the Carthaginian legacy. It refused to stay dead.
The comeback.
The impossible comeback. Even after being wiped off the map, the location itself was just too good, too strategic, too commercially vital.
Couldn't keep it empty.
Couldn't keep it empty. Within a century, Julius Caesar actually planned its refounding. And Emperor Augustus finished the job, built a brand new Roman Carthage on the ruins.
And Roman Carthage thrived.
Massively.
Yeah.
Became one of the largest cities in the Roman Empire, the capital of Roman Africa, huge exporter of grain, the very trade that Punic Carthage had mastered, grand baths, theaters, a bustling metropolis.
Wow.
And it didn't stop there. It then became a major center of early Christianity, produced some really key figures.
Like who?
Figures like Tertullian, often called the father of Latin theology, and later the hugely influential St. Augustine. He studied and taught in Carthage.
So its influence just kept going, shifting from Punic trade to Roman administration to Christian thought.
Exactly. It shows this incredible layering of history and influence.
So if we step back, look at the whole arc, Dido's cleverness, Hannibal's brilliance, the destruction, Augustine's philosophy. What's the core insight here? What does Carthage teach us?
I think it highlights the unique pressures on maritime commercial empires. Their power comes from mobility, wealth, diplomacy, things that breed incredible jealousy. Rome, at its heart, probably envied Carthage's success, its discipline, its wealth, even more than it feared Hannibal's army. That economic anxiety made the conflict almost inevitable, maybe.
And yet the resilience is the other side of that coin.
Astounding resilience. Traces of the Punic language survived for centuries, even filtering into modern Tunisian Arabic. Carthage today stands as this symbol of ambition, of resistance, of resilience against overwhelming force.
So, quite a complicated legacy then. A city that rose, fell, rose again. And maybe its real, enduring power wasn't just the elephants, but something more fundamental.
I think so. It came from the docks, the markets, that relentless ability to innovate and attract people looking for opportunity, that commercial spirit.
Which leaves us with the final thought for you, the listener, to maybe chew on.
Yeah, it's a question historians still debate. What if? What would the Mediterranean, maybe even the world, look like if the Carthaginian Senate hadn't hesitated? If they had fully backed Hannibal after Cannae?
A huge historical what if.
A huge what if.
Yeah.
Rome tried its absolute best to erase Carthage, physically, culturally. But in a way, the opposite happened. The very thoroughness of the destruction and the city's refusal to stay gone just cemented its memory. Those ruins today whisper about all those layers, the traders, the sailors, the generals, the thinkers who built a civilization that valued enterprise so profoundly that even total destruction couldn't silence its story.